Oh, sorry. It seems like I was talking, but I was on mute. so, yeah. So, if anybody has any questions for Melissa, we can start off the meeting that way, um, as she won't be here for long. And yeah, so I can. Yeah, so we can go ahead.
Hi, Melissa. This is from Tamale. I'm just taking. Helen has officially left us, so I'm kind of taking over. I'm but taking over for now, and then we have a volunteer coming in on Thursday who will be taking over from here. So I was just wondering where we're at with documentation coming back, so that we can start or launch Innovation Fund for this round. I wasn't sure if that was coming up this month, or sorry, in this meeting, but I just wasn't sure where we were at. Great, thanks, Mallory. So the tools are, I would say, 99% ready. So I have gone ahead and done all of the changes as per all the suggestions and feedback to the application and all of the other materials. The one tool that's not quite ready yet is the financial planning tool. So that one we have to just, it's really small modifications, but we have to do all the currency changes for all the countries. And then I want to double check through and make sure all the formulas work. So otherwise they're ready. I can go through the application if people want to go through the application changes. And what I've done is actually, because the application will have to be translated into all the languages, I did the application changes in track. So I've got two versions. One is what I call a red version, which is all the track changes version, and then a clean version to compare it to. So the majority of the changes in the application are formatting changes. So we took out all those text boxes and just made questions and then a space to answer. And other formatting changes. And then there were specific changes to the actual question. So that's why I think the track changes is really important, because those will be the ones that you'll have to change in the, obviously with the translation. So one of the suggestions I think that was made by Mirko was to put not only some of the wording changes in the questions, but also to put the BMC references in brackets. So we've done that. And then we've also incorporated the annex. So there was an annex for the business plan. And what I realized when I went through most of the applications that countries received was that they weren't doing the plan and the annex. They were really just doing the annex. So we just built the annex back into the application. So those are the major changes. And then, like I said, the financial planning tool has changed, and I want to update that for all 6 countries. And then the stage that I'm at now, once they've gone through the final set of eyes here, is to make the changes to all the workshop materials. So one of the things I was hoping is that someone, if they have time, would want to come forward and help out with those, or at least to get a second set of eyes on them, because I can make all the changes for sure, but then I would like it if we could have somebody volunteer to help take a second look at them. So those are the updates. When are they going to arrive to you guys? Hopefully later on today. And what else? Yeah, I think those are the big changes. But there's been adjustments made to all of the tools. So what I've done is summarized to country managers all of the changes, and then attached all of the documents and linked all the attachments. So I think that email will come out later today. Perfect. Thank you so much. Very helpful. You're welcome. And there have been some there's calls happening right now with all of the countries. So actually, the call to Indonesia is happening at the moment with the country managers to review all of the dates. So we've gone through and looked at all the training plans. And made some summaries and some estimates on numbers for targets in terms of amount and in terms of numbers of youth. So we really wanted to have those calls finished before we sent out the materials. So that's also part of the delay. I know a lot of you want to get your posters out, but we've got to have those conversations first in order to determine the launch date. So excuse me, that's why it's taking a little bit of time to get everything together. But again, the application definitely, it'll come to you today, because I know you guys have got to work on translation for that. Okay, no problem.
And just to clarify, so the country managers will receive all the new documents for this round.
Yep, yep. They'll receive it all as links in SharePoint and also as attachments.
Perfect. Thanks.
I have a question. You're talking about the changes for the business plan model and application form and everything. In Peru, we already started to give the workshops with the old version because summer is arriving soon, and then when summer starts, it's going to be complicated to have all the youth coming at the hub at the same time. So I was wondering now, for example, that we've presented them the previous version, but also warning them that there's going to be some changes. How extensive are the changes? Are they going to be super confused by seeing the new document, or is pretty much the same thing with some small changes?
That's a good question, Dominique. You'll take a look at it. I mean, it's to me, it's not really significant. I mean, some of the wording of the question has changed, but the integrity of the question is still the same. So it's really still asking for the same thing in a lot of cases, but the question is worded in a clearer way. And again, that's thanks to the suggestions that all of you guys have made. So I don't think the changes are significant. I've added a checklist. It looks a bit different because there's not those text boxes there now to enter in the text. They'll just really enter the question below. But otherwise, the integrity of the questions is the same. It's wording differences, and also I think the big shift in terms of formatting is initially, you'll remember in the application, we asked them for like a narrative type business plan, and then we also had an annex of questions. Most youth filled out that annex of questions, so we just literally took that annex of questions and incorporated them as questions into the application instead, rather than asking them for both, because in fact they only had done one, so that's okay. So those are the big differences. I wouldn't say there's huge changes. In fact, there's not huge changes in the integrity of the question. It's just really the wording.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions about round 2?
Hi, I actually have a question. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so my question is regarding budgeting for the workshops for the business
Right. Yeah.
and financial workshops.
Yeah.
So last time we had issues because we tried to do it in-house and then we weren't really knowledgeable about it.
Yeah.
So we were thinking about outsourcing that and getting people that actually know what they're talking about to take over.
Mm-hmm.
But we're wondering if we would be allocated any budget for that.
Right. Yeah. So the budgets are going to the budgets are annual budgets for the Youth Innovation Fund. So I've actually forwarded your question on to Nadia. And one of the things we're doing this week on the country calls with country managers is looking at what's been spent so far and what hasn't. So there wouldn't be additional funding that would be available, but we would see what's available in the country budget, and then the country would actually decide where they can spend the money. So there may be, that's not to say there won't be funding available. It really depends on what was spent in the accelerator workshops and also the sustainability services. Depending on what was spent out of those amounts, there may be funding that you guys can use for to hire consultants or experts in those areas. So I have forwarded your question on to Nadia. Yeah. Which country is that again? Is that Tanzania?
No, Ghana.
Ghana. Okay. All right. Okay. So the Ghana call, I think, is later this afternoon. So I'll make sure I flag that with Gifty.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Good. Okay, if there's no other questions about round 2, I also wanted to give you an update on sustainability services. So we have received almost all of the proposals. I've reviewed them all on paper. I've sent feedback to a couple of countries. Overall, the proposals are really good, really strong. There's lots of good information that countries have provided, and also some great tools that have been developed by a few countries as well. So what I'm doing this week, as we do the country calls, is providing that feedback on the phone, but also we're discussing the budgets. So I think, and we had said this earlier, don't pause your sustainability services to youth, but just put a pause on any activities that have a cost associated with them. So please continue implementing sustainability services. Don't don't wait for the budget approval, but if there is an activity that has a cost associated with it, just pause on that for now. And after these calls that take place today and tomorrow, we should be able to approve those in writing. Okay, Mallory, the question was about the budget for hiring experts to help out with the financial planning workshops and business planning workshops. Any other questions? It's very quiet. Okay. So
I did have a question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, question. I just remembered, for the sustainability services and for our participants who attend them, is there a restriction on how many they can miss? If they miss a certain amount, what happens? I just didn't catch that from Helen before, if that was answered before, or if that's something that's still up in the air.
Sorry, Mallory, it was cutting a little bit. Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, so for sustainability services, so we have events every month, but if our participants have like a week, like one or two of them, is there any repercussions for that, or is it like will they receive the rest of their funding? I wasn't sure what the protocol was there.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I think that's the decision that we would probably delegate to the country teams. That you guys would actually decide on what the cutoff is for receiving the rest of the funding. It's definitely a decision you would have internally. Excuse me. But I would suggest that you do set a threshold. If the person's not engaging at all, then you would probably think about being able to have a conversation with them and what the step would be if they're not engaging. So probably talk with the country manager, and maybe you guys can have a discussion about that internally and decide what would be the threshold for making that cutoff decision if they're going to get the rest of their funding or not. But definitely share that. So once you've had that discussion, share that maybe with the group, because it's possible that others are having a similar issue.
Melissa, you wanted to talk about the future of the global implementation team. You said that in one of your...
Yeah, so one of the things we're doing for the second round is we'll be having bi-weekly calls with the hub coordinators. So it won't be a global call. It'll be a Canada to country call. And one of the things we've suggested, and again, this hasn't been discussed yet with the country team, so it's just an idea at this stage. But the idea was to have biweekly calls with the hub coordinators and also the volunteers that are helping out with the innovation fund. So because those would be more concentrated, more intensive country focus calls, it led me to think, okay, well, what about the GIT? Because we're obviously, that's the demand on your time as well every 2 weeks. So what I was thinking is, and again, the terms of reference of this group can fluctuate, right? So right now we're sharing a lot of tools, we're sharing a lot of examples with each other, but as you guys get into implementation of round 2, you're going to be really busy with that, right? So one of the things I was thinking about just yesterday was the possibility of, since you'll be involved in those biweekly one-to-one calls, so calls between the country and Canada, perhaps this committee could shift to more of a best practice for now. So where a country, sort of like what we do with the webinars, where one country has a good model or a good tool that they're using and they want to share that as an example, that we meet once a month and that country leads that presentation and then has a global discussion about that. So that was one of the ideas, just because I know this is going to be a demand on your time, on the hub coordinator's time, doing these bi-weekly calls, and it makes the global calls a little bit more, I guess for me, I just thought, well, if we're already doing the bi-weekly calls with the hub coordinators, and those are really the concentrated calls of what's happening at the moment, maybe this would be a little bit too much to be sharing also globally, unless we've got good examples. So that was kind of my proposal, to convert this into a monthly sharing of examples of what's happening globally, and that way it's less of a demand on your.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
And then, after the second round is over, we could go back to this model of every 2 weeks or even monthly of sharing globally. But I just feel like, when I was thinking about it yesterday, if we're going to be updating each other every 2 weeks at a country by country basis, and then you guys are doing it again every 2 weeks, it's just going to become really probably quite repetitive and time consuming for you guys as well. For me, it's great because I get to hear what everybody's doing at once. But for you guys, I just worry about your time.
Hi, I just have a question about financial documentation.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, and also I'd like to say, just talking about moving these to monthly, I've gotten a lot out of these meetings. They've helped a ton, especially with the first round implementation. So I'm not sure what the country, like Canada to country meetings would be, but I'd be hesitant to get away from these just because I've found them so helpful so far since I've been working on the Innovation Fund.
Okay.
But so financial documentation, I'm wondering if we have any standardized, what we want from the students in terms of documenting the money as they spend it. Like I've told people to keep receipts and keep track of the money and document it, but I haven't really been able to say how we would like it documented or what exactly I need, just where the money went, a receipt, or I'm wondering if there's any standardization or anybody who has a plan for that already.
So this is the documentation you're collecting after, right?
Yeah, but from round 1, how they're spending the money now.
Okay, yeah.
From Isabel from Zanzibar. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So at the moment, we already started that kind of thing. what we asked them to keep, and finally we asked for photocopies also of all the receipts, and some of them also provided us with lists of expenses that they had. To be honest, the bookkeeping is not that good up to now. We just made a workshop last Sunday, tried to implement it a bit better, but yeah, if ever we have like very clear instructions, it could be nice. But for the moment, we just ask for each and every receipt, and we keep copies of it. So for the moment, it's not too many of them. Still doable, but yeah.
What have other teams been doing? John, can you type your question into the chat? Thanks.
Just an update for Viviana, because I know you did join the call a little later. I'm glad you can hear us now. So right now, Melissa is just answering any questions that we may have for her. And then we will move on to the country updates, which Lydia will facilitate. But right now, it's any questions for Melissa.
Isabel, which country are you in?
Tanzania.
Oh, okay. Okay. And you guys said you did a bookkeeping workshop, is that right? Like a tertiary training?
Yeah, something very like casual last Sunday.
Okay.
All the recipients wanted to meet also together, and since they were already meeting, we had this workshop. But yeah, it's not perfect yet. It's like
Okay.
try to tell them how to do it, but here it's quite yeah, it's almost brand new for them. So we have a long way to go, and we keep everything now. We just keep the copies of the receipts, so at least we really know what has been spent, or at least we have like a list of what they spent somewhere or something that's very clear for us. We can rely on it and know that the money that we gave has been spent in the business.
Okay. So I think you guys have raised two really important issues today. One is the one about holding youth accountable. So when they aren't attending sustainability services, do they get their second disbursement? I think that's a good discussion to have. And then also globally, a discussion around having this policy or procedure for gathering the financial documentation from all of the recipients. So I think these are two discussions we're also going to have here, but I think you should also have them in country. And then if there's some good planning that comes out around gathering the receipts and the financial documentation, maybe that can be shared at the next call. And if anybody comes up with an idea that can be shared, for example, in a webinar or something like that, if you come up with some good tips for a workshop, we can share those. So I'll take these questions back to the team here as well, and see if there's any ideas from Christine or Nadia as well.
About the disbursement of the money for the second round, just to make sure I understand correctly, all of the money needs to be disbursed by March. So for the second round, we won't be able to do 2 disbursements, right?
So that's something we're discussing with the teams this week. It's basically an issue of cash flow and when the money needs to be spent. And that's actually what's caused the delay in even sending out the materials and confirming the deadlines. So what we're trying to do is there's basically an amount of money that has to be spent in year 3 and an amount that has to be spent in year 4. So because there are 6 countries with different targets on number of youth and different targets remaining from the initial 33,000 that they were to spend in year 1, and because some of that money has to be spent in year 3 and some has to be spent in year 4, you can see how it gets very complicated. So that's definitely going to vary from country to country this year. So probably you'll have an amount that you need to spend for round 1 in year 3 and an amount that will have to be spent in year 4. But there's also a possibility that some countries may have all of their spending in year 4. So they still might launch in year 3, but that all of the spending might be in year 4. So we're trying to navigate this on an individual country-to-country basis at the moment. And unfortunately, that's the way we have to do it, because basically everybody spent different amounts out of their total 33,000 budget that they had for the year. So we've got to go country by country, and also country by country in terms of launch, because in some cases, some countries have youth that are ready to enroll in the competition, and others are still finishing up entrepreneurship trainings right into Q4. So that's going to vary the launch dates as well. So the bottom line is not all countries are going to launch at the same time. Not all countries are going to have disbursement in the full disbursements in year 3. Most countries are going to have half their disbursements in year 3 and half in year 4. So the short answer to your question is that yes, you will be able to have 2 disbursements. Probably one's going to be in year 3 and one's going to be in year 4, but it's going to be country dependent, and it really all depends on the conversations we have with the countries in the next few days. So you should have your answer by Wednesday or Thursday through your country manager. Does that help?
Perfect. Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm really sorry about this, guys. It's been a tough nut to crack, figuring out when, because definitely we want the Innovation Fund to launch again this year, preferably in Q3 or Q4. I know a lot of you really want to launch in Q3, and we're trying to make that happen. But we also don't want the disbursements to be spread out over a long period of time. So there's a lot of factors to consider before we can actually say, okay, this is definitely the launch date. So I think I was a little bit premature when I pressed that button saying, when are you going to launch and when is your due date going to be? Because we actually had to come back and figure out all the finance and after that. And that probably should have happened first. Does that make sense? So this week will be the week that you get probably all your answers in terms of launch date, due date, disbursement 1, disbursement 2, and target number of youth and target amount as well. And again, that's going to vary from country to country. It's not all going to be at the same time. Okay, so before I go, I hope you guys will continue the discussion about the future of the GIT and what exactly we want to do. Either way, if we continue bi-weekly or monthly, I'm okay with that if you guys are. But what I would like us to do is plan ahead on themes so that we can have like a thematic discussion at each meeting. Because I think you'll quickly see as we're doing the bi-weekly country calls that you'll be giving the same update twice, which is okay. It's okay because it's nice for global sharing. But I'd also like us to plan ahead for those meetings and really pick a theme of what we're going to talk about, as I think you guys have been doing in the agendas as well. So that's just my suggestion. I mean, ultimately, it's up to all of us what we decide to do, and also, the level at which we involve the hub coordinators as well, or other members of the team, and how we disseminate this information back to them. So I'm going to run soon, but what I will do. Excuse me, Philson, you're going to upload this call, right? It's being recorded, so I will listen to the full call, and if there's any questions, I'll also watch the chat and make sure that I respond to those.
Perfect. Yeah, it'll be uploaded. Thanks, Melissa.
Okay. Thanks so much. Any other questions, guys? And if you email me and I don't reply right away, do feel free to harass me and send it again. Chances are I'm looking for an answer to your question, but I just don't have it yet. I don't delete an item from my inbox until the question's actually been answered. So know that if you've asked me and you're still waiting, it's probably because I don't have an answer yet. So just feel free to send it again. But I'll try to be on top of my emails a bit more. A lot of silence. Okay, Philson, I'm going to go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Melissa.
So just to get another update, I just want to make sure that Viviana, can you hear us all? I know you're typing something right now.
Yes, I can hear you, but sorry, I'm really confused because I don't know who's talking.
Yeah, that was Melissa from Ottawa, so she had to go, which is why we started.
What?
Melissa.
Oh, okay, Melissa. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, you know it's my first time with you, so I don't know you. I don't really know you. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So Melissa just started off the call answering some questions if we had any because she had to leave. Now we're gonna go ahead. So Lydia, if you are here, you can just start, and we'll go country by country and just get I guess general updates and So I will pass it over to Lydia now, and also Viviana. This call is recorded, and I'm taking meeting notes. So later on, I will upload them, so you can go back and listen or read if you wanna see anything you missed. So I will pass it over.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No problem.
That will be really helpful for me. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so Lydia, are you here with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Great.
I'm a little bit sick, so just bear with me. So what we did do first is that since Melissa has answered questions and given us some information, we could do maybe a check-in with every country on your current state and your sustainability support programs. So maybe where you are in it, what you've offered so far, any challenges that you maybe are having, and then we can just go from there. So maybe if Ghana is here, if they want to go first.
Ghana is here. I have a internet issue, so I might drop out. So
Okay.
we started implementing our sustainability services. And I'm going to talk for Accra, and then Mallory can add something for Tamale. So the first activity that we were able to do was a trade show, and it was put out by another organization, and we invited some of our innovation fan winners to join. It was actually quite a good success. They were able to network and kind of sell some of their products. So we're waiting to hear some feedback from them so that we can know if this is something that they want to have in the future.